Pokemon Legends ZA is $70 slot. I mean, no game should be $70, let alone this one. So let's hear you say, boycott! Well, I said you should say it, not me. Pokemon Legends ZA was announced back in 2024, and the game was met with cautious optimism when people found out it was releasing in the next year, showing that the Pokemon Company might be taking more time with their games. However, when it comes to me, I didn't give a damn. While I've always been a Pokemon fan, I was never a fan of the Pokemon games. I grew up collecting the cards and watching the anime. However, when I tried one of the Pokemon games that my sister had, I could never get into them. The turn-based combat just never appealed to me. However, we got more shown off about the game, and it was shown that there would be a real-time battling system, and also the fact that the game would take place entirely in Lumio City. This sparked a bunch of uproar from Twitter people. However, again, I still didn't care. While the real-time battling system was slightly intriguing, I still didn't really care about the game at all. But as we got closer to launch, my opinion shifted. While I still probably wasn't going to buy the game, the more footage I saw, the more interested I got. However, after the game was released, I saw through one of my friends playing through one of the battle zones, and that tipped me over the edge, and I ended up picking up the game. And well, I enjoyed it, a lot more than I thought I would. While I didn't think it was perfect, I thought it was so good that it inspired me to play through the other Pokemon games, and it ended up converting me into a fan of the Pokemon games. However, throughout the almost year since I picked up this game, I've replayed it 5 times from beginning to end, and each time I replayed it, I enjoyed it more and more. I completed every side quest in the base game, completed the base game Pokédex, and caught Rayquaza in the DLC. So I thought I would finally talk about this game in full, because of all the hate surrounding this game, some of which being in incredibly bad faith by people who haven't even played the game. So let's jump right into it. Starting off with the story, this is easily the peak of the Pokemon franchise. The story follows you traveling to Lumio City on vacation, and after you get off at the train station, you run into your main rival in the game, Tawny, or Urbane, but I'll call them Tawny throughout this video. Tawny gives you a starter after your bag is stolen, the starters being Chikorita, Totodile, and Tepig, which the starters should have been Totodile, Snivy, and Litten, but that's besides the point. Then Tawny takes you through a battle zone on the way to Hotel Z, teaching you about the main gimmick of the game, and at Hotel Z, you meet the members of Team MZ. AZ, who owns the hotel and is 3,000 years old, Lita, who is someone who came to Lumios to become a professional dancer, and Naveen, who ran away from home as an artist who is also a professional streamer simp. From there, you get introduced to the ZA Royale, and the goal is to climb the ranks of the ZA Royale in order to become the strongest Mega Evolution user, in order to protect the city from not only Rogue Mega Evolution, but also the Lumios Tower, or Prism Tower, which gets out of control. While the actual plot isn't the greatest thing ever, what makes the game story great is how the characters are written. There are small moments written into the plot that make the game feel more real and also funny, such as Canary calling you slurs after losing against you, or Naveen constantly making fun of Tawny's croissant curry. However, there is a sore spot in the writing: Tawny. As I mentioned earlier, Tawny is your main rival in the game. She's the person who is your main competitor. However, at the end of the game, she is convinced that she has to be the one to save Lumios, but that wasn't set up at all throughout the game. For some context, at the end of the game, in order to stop the tower, or Anj, the strongest Mega Evolution user has to take Mega Floette up to the tower core in order to stop the tower. Even though you've clearly been the stronger trainer throughout the game, Tawny makes you fight for it, and even after you win, she still takes Floette up to the tower anyway, which is incredibly stupid. It would be fine if they set up why she wants to be the one to save everyone, but they don't. Throughout the game, Tawny volunteers the player into doing all of the heavy lifting. Tawny suggests the idea of the player taking care of all 3 rogue megas, while the other Team MZ members have to do only one. When you're getting the outfit for the SBC party, Tawny makes you fight for the outfit. When LeBain shows up to Hotel Z, not only do you have to fight the SBC grunts back to back, but then after that you fight LeBain while she watches from behind the bushes. And in Jasim's tournament, Tawny gets out in the first round against Corbeau. Even the other members of Team MZ realize the player is stronger. When talking about the strongest Mega user with AZ, Naveen and Lita instantly say that it's the player. And when they're talking about who Floette trusts the most, Naveen instantly says that it's the player. Throughout every single point in the game, it is clear that the player is the strongest Mega Evolution user, and we don't get a single good reason why Tawny doesn't want to hand over the tower to the player. All she says is that she has to be the strongest, she has to be the one to save Lumios. She just feels incredibly half-baked, especially considering that she's supposed to be the leader of Team MZ, yet somehow Lita acts more like a leader. While Lita isn't as great at battling, she hosts every single strategy meeting. She's the one who goes to the Rust Syndicate HQ after Tawny gets the entire team in debt after trying to shoot a TikTok, because we needed another reason to dislike her. And on top of that, she is the one who cares the most about the player character. However, while I spent a long time complaining about Tawny, because she sucks, don't take that as the story overall sucks. Because, well, a cool thing about the story is that while your main goal is to rank up in the ZA Royale, throughout ranking up you get to meet the people of Lumios in your rank up matches. You get to see their thoughts and their dreams. Whether it's something as simple as abolishing all forms of transit except for taxis, okay, maybe Zach should have stayed in rank Z, and the situations you get caught up in are pretty insane to say the least. For one of the rank up matches, you have to find a streamer named Canary, so you get Naveen to help you win a Who is the Most Parasocial contest in order to earn the promotion match. Or you have to track down a guy named Ivor's sister through some detective work, and in the end you find out his sister ran away because Ivor is one of the most insufferable people to be around. Then, as I mentioned earlier, Tawny gets into debt because she thinks she'll become the next Mr. Beast, so you're stuck doing community service for the Rust Syndicate until you're able to have a promotional match with their leader, Corbeau. I thought the game always kept you guessing, and there was no way to guess what was going to happen next. We even got to see some redemption for Lysander from Pokemon X and Y, which was really cool to see, because Lysander always had the potential to be a cool character. Just look at the XY anime. However, in the games, his motivation was hollow, and he just wasn't that great of a villain. But seeing him fleshed out in this game was really cool. On top of that, finally having Zygarde baked into the forefront of the story was a nice way to follow up on that cancelled Pokemon Z. However, what I think was the coolest thing about the story is how it tackles the bonds between humans and Pokemon. After the Kalos crisis 5 years ago, the city went through urban redevelopment in order to make a city where people and Pokemon can coexist. And while every Pokemon game before this talks about people and Pokemon, we get to see it firsthand, such as one guy allowing a wild Gengar to stay with him in his apartment, or Lita and her Staryu doing dance practice, or how AZ's Floette worries about you and Lita while you're going to the Rust Syndicate office. Out of all Pokemon games, this was definitely the one where they feel the least like tools and more like actual characters. However, one last problem I have with the story was the lack of characters from XY. While I appreciate the fact that the game created a bunch of new characters, I think we should have seen more characters from the original game. For example, why didn't we see Karina? After all, she could have easily been in the running for strongest Mega user. Why didn't we see Diantha, the former champion, or any of the Elite Four? Why didn't we see Clement? His gym was in Prism Tower. Where was Sycamore? Bro was straight up replaced by Mabel of all people. We could have seen Tierno, Trevor, and Shauna, and even if we didn't see any of these guys, it would have been cool if we saw them in the post-game. But we didn't, and that kinda sucks, because it would have been cool to have these guys fleshed out, just like Lysander and AZ. At least we got to see Karina in the DLC, but other than that, we haven't seen any of the other guys. But overall, I think the story in Legend ZA is really good. Again, while I don't think it's perfect by any means, it's just really good, and it really clicked with me. However, when it comes to games, I look for gameplay mostly, and Legends EA's gameplay is amazing in my opinion. Instead of having to travel the region in order to collect 8 gym badges and fight the Elite Four and take down some evil team, Legends EA changes up the structure. Instead of traveling the Kalos region, you instead are restricted to Lumio City, and while that does suck, as some places can end up blending together, I think it's fine for this game specifically, as there's enough to do where I don't really get bored. But the biggest changes to the gameplay are the day and night system. At day, you visit wild zones, which are sectioned off areas of the city where you can catch Pokemon using the new Legends Arceus catching system. And these are really cool. While all of them are not made equally, these zones can be really fun to explore. If you're not catching Pokemon in wild zones, you can also explore the city, find Pokemon out of wild zones, find different useful items, and get TMs. Speaking of TMs, Mabel, who replaces Sycamore in the research lab, gives you different research tasks to do, such as catching Pokemon, participating in battles, and evolving Pokemon. And doing these tasks gives you access to useful TMs, which is really cool. Also, there are numerous side quests for you to complete, around 120 of them, and these are kind of hit or miss. As someone who has done all of them, in the base game at least, some of them can be really cool, such as having to beat a parkour course faster than a Froakie. However, some of them can suck, such as all of the annoying Holovator side quests. However, when the sun sets on Lumios, the battle zone activates, and when that happens, you have to fight a bunch of trainers throughout, and you have until the sun comes up to earn a challenger's ticket, which you can use to take place in a promotion match. This leads into the new battling system, which instead of being turn-based, is a real-time battling system. You have access to 4 moves, but the function of the moves changes drastically from the turn-based games. For example, multi-hit moves that usually have a chance to hit 2 to 5 times in the turn-based games are guaranteed to hit all 5 times, drastically improving them. On top of that, you can strategically move your Pokemon around to dodge attacks. You can use moves like Whirlpool and Fire Spin to constantly do damage to any Pokemon caught in it. Moves like Flip Turn and U-Turn, instead of bringing you back to your Pokeball, instead cause you to instantly fall back, giving you some spacing. While the battle system isn't the most incredibly deep battling system I've ever seen, they are incredibly fun, and I think the gameplay loop of catching Pokemon during the day and battling trainers at night is incredibly fun. However, what really brings the game together is the promotion matches. In order to reach rank A, you have to take part in promotion matches in order to rank up. And while the first few promotion matches are pretty standard, once you're halfway into the game, the trainers start getting access to Mega Evolution. So the fights not only become tougher, but a lot more fun. And that's something I definitely appreciated, because in every other game with Mega Evolution, only like one other trainer has it. Even your rival in XY doesn't get a Mega Bracelet. But in this game, a lot more people have access to Megas, even some people in the ZA Royale battle zones, which makes the game much cooler. However, not only do more trainers have access to Mega Evolution, but wild Pokemon have access to it as well, with the main boss fights of the game coming in the form of rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon. These are insanely fun to fight. Their attacks are cranked up a notch to make them incredibly powerful, but at the same time, you not only have to worry about your Pokemon, you have to worry about yourself, because if the player takes too much damage, you also lose. Everything about the gameplay to me is just insanely fun, except for the post-game. In the post-game, you gain access to the Infinite ZA Royale, and well, it's fine I guess. However, my main problem is you fight against all the same trainers you fought in your promotion matches, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem if their teams were more fleshed out with full teams of 6 fully evolved Pokemon. But no, the first match in the Infinite Royale is Zack again, but his team still has 3 Pokemon, and none of them are higher than level 11, and considering the post-game is where you get access to all of the Kalos legendaries, I think that it really sucks because you spend a lot of time grinding in the battle zone just for a very underwhelming fight. However, the last thing to talk about is the final boss, which is against Prism Tower, which honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of. The battle takes place at the base of the tower, and you have to take out 2 flowers sprouting from it, and once you've taken them out, you switch over to Complete Form Zygarde to do a huge chunk of damage. The boss is kinda fun, but it's pretty underwhelming for what it is. It's just kind of like in Sonic Frontiers, where the end is set up to be this huge terrifying boss, but instead it's just a purple moon. However, overall, Pokemon Legends EA gameplay loop is insanely fun, and while I have a few gripes with it, it definitely is a great step forward, and is my favorite Pokemon gameplay loop, and definitely is what I want to see going forward. Now we have the most controversial part about the game, the presentation. Ever since the Switch was released, people have been up in arms about Pokemon's graphics, especially after Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And when it comes to Legend ZA, the buildings, the balconies are all 2D! But in all seriousness, the game could have and should have looked better. Other Nintendo franchises have had a lot better looking games. Even something like Metroid Prime 4, which released on both Switch 1 and Switch 2, circles laps around Legend ZA in the looks department. However, I still think it looks solid. However, one thing I can't excuse is the lack of voice acting. Voice acting is basically a necessity for every modern RPG, and the fact that we still don't have voice acting in Pokemon is genuinely frustrating, especially with how well animated the cutscenes can be, and with how good the writing was. The fact that there's no voice acting is a genuine detriment. While I don't think it looks amazing, and the lack of voice acting sucks, when it comes to the soundtrack, that's where the presentation shines. Well, I think the fact that Lumio City has the same song playing in the background the whole time, that sucks. That doesn't change the fact that the other music in the game is genuinely really good, such as Canary's battle theme, just Sim's battle theme. And the song that plays during your final battle with Tawny. Pokemon Legend ZA isn't a perfect game by any means. Tawny is half-baked as a character, the ending leaves a little to be desired, the side quests aren't consistent in quality, the post-game is pretty trash, and the Infinite ZA Royale could have been structured differently. The graphics are just not as good as they should be. There's no voice acting. However, that doesn't change the fact that I love this game, and I definitely think it is worth for you to give a try. While there is a lot of controversy surrounding this game, I personally think that you should play the game for yourself and come up with your own conclusion, because while there are things that hold this game back, and things that I hope will be improved in the future, I genuinely think this is a great game, and one of my favorite games of all time. While it isn't a perfect 10 out of 10, it's my 10 out of 10. And yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe and stuff like that. Until next time, peace.